Hello world, it's Dave again, and I got another book review for you here. And this time, it is the stunning conclusion of the Margaret Atwood Mad Addam trilogy, and the third book in the trilogy is called Mad Addam. I really enjoyed this series from the start. I'd never really read Margaret Atwood, as famous a Canadian as she is, a fellow Canadian. I'd never read her stuff before this series. And I'm seeing now, getting through it, there's a reason that she has so much critical acclaim and why people enjoy her story so much. It was really good. Maybe, I guess I was going to say that I enjoyed maybe the other books more, but then I was like, no, it's just that they're different. I think if you compared this books to the other two, she's accomplishing different things with each book, so it wouldn't be fair to kind of cast them in the same light as much as they're a part of the same trilogy. So I'll talk about the things that I enjoyed in it. And what I really enjoyed in this is that as the series has progressed, you start the beginning story and you start with the perspective, the first book anyways, you start with the perspective of Jimmy and his friend Craig, or Glenn, I believe is his name before he takes on the name Craig. And then in the second book, you get the story told from the perspective of these two girls and this religious cult that exists kind of at the same time. And now in the third book, another character that was intermingled with the first and second stories is now given some time spent on where he came from, what was his backstory leading up to all the events of the book. And it seems to be an examination, among other things. I mean, I know there's tons going on in their story, but it seems to be a story about stories. There's like one particular excerpt that stands out in my mind, where she's talking about stories, and she says there's the story that's being told, then the story that's not told, and that's a part of the story, and then there's the story of how the story came to be. And she's just like kind of showing you all the aspects, or like different ways that you could approach coming at telling a story, all the different things that make up a story, and I thought that was really interesting. I was like, that's true, especially when I've read a book and I really enjoy it. So much of what I enjoy in a book, when it's well written, are things that are hinted at and not always necessarily explained in full in the series, but they add to the whole experience. So I really enjoyed that. I thought that was cool as a sort of discussion of storytelling. Where in the previous books, I mean, the world is separated into, you have kind of the pleblands, all the poor people, and then you have these compounds that people are living in. The guy that you focus on in the third book is, he's from a rich family, but an abusive family. His father's really horrible. It's Zeb that it focuses on. Zeb, who you meet in the second book, I believe. And his story as to how he kind of came to be takes place, like I say, in the pleblands, and it's how he's up and coming. And what I really enjoyed in the second book was that you got to see the pleblands, where the first book focused more on the compounds. So I enjoyed that in the third as well. I really enjoyed, seeing more of what life was like and how the world has changed through all the environmental impact that we've had on it. And you just get a greater fleshing out again of the world that Margaret Atwood has created for the book. And that's what you get from reading his story. And of course, you're going to get the conclusion to what has been happening. All these people have met up after the waterless flood, the great disease that hits the planet and everything. And you do get the conclusion of that too. And I almost got the feeling towards the end of the book, without spoiling anything, how, again, it's almost like she was making a point that there's a story that people are going to feel beyond whatever end I create to this book. And I thought that was interesting too. It's almost like the story never stops, really, Other interesting points as well. Let's see. I enjoy her style, without talking any more about the plot. I think that just she paints a really vivid world. And she uses some really interesting, I call it like moving her voice around, and I don't want to say necessarily tricking the reader, but surprising you. She would take me off guard a couple times, where I would think, there are parts in the book where it's just the narrator speaking, and it's not one of the characters speaking, it's a narrator observing from the outside what it is that the character is feeling. And sometimes it would start with the narrator's voice, and then you'd suddenly realize, a sentence later, that was the thoughts of a character. But that's pretty unique. I don't see a lot of stories that trick you into believing that it's just the narrator, but then suddenly enter into the character. Another interesting voice that she used, which I really enjoyed, again, like doing interesting things with voices, was how she as the narrator would talk to her characters. Sometimes a character would be having feelings, expressing something in their mind, and then a question, just like a single question, would be posed to the character. I'd be like, who is that doing that? I don't think it's the character thinking to itself. It's not in the kind of omniscient, or it's not removed from the character. It's like the voice is standing next to the character. The character will be sad, and then it will end with a sentence that just says, "Are you sad, Toby?" And I thought that was really interesting too. It gave you a, I don't even know how to describe it aside from it gave me an interesting feeling. It put me in the story in an interesting way. It was almost like you were getting to ask that question. It was like the question that you wanted to ask the character was then written into the story, and you felt like you were really next to them. So I thought that was very interesting as well. Really unique, because I read enough that I feel like I would have seen that in other things that I've been looking at, and I haven't. So I would strongly recommend this book. I mean, it's kind of a foregone conclusion that if you've already read the first two, you're probably going to read the third one. You wouldn't not read the third one. But I can say this for anybody who's starting the series, that you're certainly not going to be disappointed. She continues straight through to the end of this one in the same beautiful style of prose that she has, very vivid, and concludes a really interesting story with those other, call it writing tools. That's how I'll simply name those for the voice and stuff like that she gets going along the way as well. So not a huge review, but I really enjoyed the book. I'm loving the word vivid today. Like I say, it was really vivid, a lot of what took place in it. So I recommend reading the whole series. It is a fantastic series. And if you're not introduced to Margaret Atwood already, this is a great place to start with this series, because especially if you like dystopic future novels, and that's a big thing right now. In fact, I'm kind of like, I'm writing my own thing right now, which is sort of in that same vein. Not entirely. It's more of like a sci-fi fantasy, but it has elements of it. But, like that Divergent series is popular. You got Wool, which is popular. You've got, Wool's a bit older now, I suppose. You've got, what is that other one? The Hungry Games. Anyways, read it, check it out. It's really, really good. I strongly recommend it. Great book, great author. Same as usual. Be interesting. I guess got to figure out. And it's new too. That's great. It's just like cutting edge. Just released within the last couple of months, last half a year or so. So yeah, like everybody says, I'll post down in the links, obviously, the name of the book, my contact information. If you have recommendations, I really enjoy that. If you've read the book and you want to share some of your thoughts on it, everything like that. I welcome it all. So like, subscribe, share if you enjoy the reviews. There'll be many more. And like I like to say, until we meet again next time, world, thanks for tripping with Dave. Ciao for now. Peace.